Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for The Lone Stranger and Porky, released in 1939. It's the 227th in the series and it's directed by Bob Clampett. You can find this on the Porky Pig 101 DVD set. I have a link below. Just be aware that on that set they use the wrong opening music, but the cartoon's still watchable otherwise, and I've also upscaled that image into HD, which I'll be using for this review. Now, in case you haven't seen this one, and there's probably a good chance you haven't, unfortunately I can't show you the full thing here on YouTube due to copyright, but this is a parody of the Lone Ranger, so we see of course the Lone Stranger here on one of his adventures rescuing Porky from a bad guy, and there is even a cliffhanger at the very end. So what you're first going to see is a re-edit of the original audio commentary I did, which I had to take down, but it's back up, so thanks to Blue Genocide for doing that for me. Plus, there will also be some new thoughts from me, and there'll also be a part from the Bob Clampett retrospective that was done. So, yeah, grab some popcorn and say, "Hi-yo, Silver!"
These are your best entertainment. Hi-yo, Silver!
Yeah, I love this opening, like setting up the scene pretty well. It's similar to what Clampett would do with Buckaroo Bugs, how he would just have that, in the first minute, just setting everything up. It's absolutely amazing. Now, as I would have mentioned on the Daffy Duck commentary, by this point, Clampett was focusing all his attention on this cartoon, and so what he ended up doing was he pushed the Daffy Duck up the pipeline and just to quickly get that one done so he can put more attention on this one. Because at the time, the Lone Ranger was huge, was absolutely huge on the radio, and you can imagine that you definitely want to capitalize on that, and it ended up paying off. All this extra attention on this cartoon meant that Clampett ended up winning the Grand Shorts Award in 1939 for the best one real black and white cartoon. Now we see Porky, and weirdly enough, he does not talk in this one. I mean, Mel Blanc is in it. He does a voice of a horse, and this probably just shows that maybe Clampett was just interested in doing something else, besides Porky. But because he had to do a Porky cartoon, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that he just put Porky in just to say it's a Porky short, even though it's really a Lone Stranger short, like it's some sort of a backdoor pilot of sorts. With Billy Bletcher, he does the narrator's voice, he does the villain's voice, and he does the Lone Stranger, so he voices the villain, the hero, and the narrator, and it just shows his range, because he's mostly known for his really deep voice, as I'm trying to do. He's like really deep, and yeah, he had a much better range. Now, television broadcasting, this would have been interesting because radio was still king, theatre was still king, as in cinema, I should say. But yeah, television, it was around, but it wasn't really as big as it would become in the 50s. This is absolutely amazing, just how the horses become like cats and they end up falling in love, but definitely have a listen.
Gosh, boy meets girl.
Gee, who do you think that was? That's Pinto Colvin, Goofy. See, 1939, I mean, that would make sense where he had left the Disney studio because he did, Goofy, and for a while Disney had to figure out how they were going to make Goofy shorts without their Goofy voice actor, and yeah, that's how those how-to shorts came about, so they could have a narrator and Goofy doing silly things, and that was just a genius solution in my opinion. But enough about Goofy, I will discuss him again one day, but yeah, that was a very surprising little thing. So those are my original thoughts, and here are a few that I actually missed last time. So we've got here some wanted posters, so we have Ray Katz, who was supervising the units at the time, and also instead of Bob Clampett, you got Cobb Blampett. Yeah. Yep, gotta love Clapper's sense of humour here, with all the spotlights on the house and all that, with that ridiculous mask. It's so good. It's so good. And the attention to detail of this short, you can definitely see that Clapper put a lot of extra work in here. It's similar to when Chuck Jones put a lot more effort into What's Opera Doc, and the other shorts he just did a lot more quicker, so I definitely can agree that that was the case here. So as mentioned before, Porky is barely in it, to the point where he doesn't even speak, and that just shows you that, hey, at least Clamper had some interesting ideas on how to get Porky, I suppose, out of the way so he can focus on other characters, And having watched the shorts after this, it's just fascinating to see the lengths he would go to show that, hey, it's a Porky short, but it's not really a Porky short, if that makes sense. So let's talk a bit about The Lone Ranger. So with The Lone Ranger, the popularity of the series at the time of this short cannot be understated, compared to now, where most people may only know of The Lone Ranger from the 2013 film, which was a flop, and, well, quite frankly, for good reason. So The Lone Ranger was created in 1933 by George Trendle for radio, and was an immediate success. In fact, by 1939, when this short was released, around 20 million or so Americans would listen to the show. It was aimed at kids, but as we can see in this short, adults were enjoying the show as well, so I guess Clamper was like a big kid at heart. Ultimately, 2,956 episodes were produced, ending in 1954. But that's not all. There were also 2 film serials released in 1938 and 1939. First one was appropriately called The Lone Ranger, and the second one, The Lone Ranger Rides Again. Later on, from television's infancy in 1949 to 1957, The Lone Ranger went to television, and after that, there would be various cartoons and movie attempts. In amongst all this, there was a comic strip, there was comic books, Little Big Books, Little Golden Books, novels. I mean, heck, there was even a Nintendo game at one point. So, much like in this short, each episode of the radio show would have the Lone Ranger yell out, "Hi-yo, Silver!" and dash off to the tune of the William Tell Overture, which became really associated with this radio show and character. Oh, and by the way, if you were wondering where the term Kimosabe comes from, it's what the Lone Ranger would call his sidekick Tonto, which I'm assuming that's what the Native American character in this short's supposed to be. He's not really named, but I think it is. Also, as a side thing, if you are a fan of the Green Hornet, you have the Lone Ranger to thank, as that series was a spin-off featuring the son of the nephew of the Lone Ranger, so how about that? Now in this scene we have 2 references. One is of course of Snow White and the mirror on the wall. Snow White had come out only a few months prior, especially during the production of this, and the voice you'll hear from this character in the mirror is a parody of Walter Winchell, who was an American radio news commentator.
Special bulletin from border to coast and coast to border. Flash! Attention Lone Stranger and Silver. Porky Pig has just been robbed near Bent Fork.
Of course, this amusing part here is how the villains can shoot the hero all they want, but they'll never get him. Similar to a lot of the earlier James Bond films.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you got me.
Which is topped, of course, with the narrator being shot, which is similar to what Tex Avery would have probably done. So here's an interesting setup. So we have a cliffhanger on an actual cliff. How about that? So yeah, that's where the term basically came from. So when you would watch the serials at the time, you would be left with a cliffhanger. So you would come back next time to see how the story all continues, which we actually see it continue here, of course. The term itself just came from the fact that a lot of the times the hero would be dangling off of something and he'd be like, oh no, how does the hero survive? And of course, the ending kind of reminds me of the Simpsons gag where you had the dog with the shifty eyes. So of course, babies have come very quickly here, and of course you've got the evil baby there with the mustache. Well, yeah, very strange ending. So now here's a sample of the Bob Clampett retrospective video I made. For those of you who don't have time to watch the entire thing, here is the sample relating to this cartoon. The Lone Stranger is hilarious, and it showcases Bob's love of, well, in this case, the radio, because The Lone Ranger was a huge radio show at the time, and, you know, the audiences really would have gotten a kick out of it, especially seeing it visually, that idea as opposed to the radio. You know, yeah, a few unfortunate stereotypes here and there, but that was also part of the radio show, and it's got some clever gags, and it's very cinematic. That's why I like this one. This is Bob taking things to the next level, in my view. So yeah, but I love Lone Stranger and Porky. But
Yeah, I like
the
that.
next-
The horse at the end. That's oh gosh, boy meets
Oh, that's
girl.
yeah, I forgot about that actually.
Enzo
because
Colvig, yeah.
Yeah, that's not long after Colvig got let go from Disney. They had like a falling out, and he just did a literal Goofy voice in this short. And I still maintain that he did that to give the finger to his boss, who clearly watched all these cartoons. Right? He wasn't focused on anything else. No. He clearly watches the competition.
He was watching it while working on Fantasia and Pinocchio, and he just went.
Yes, clearly. But I'm sure it made Pinto feel a lot better about himself, though, for sure. As for the rating, I'm giving this one a solid 8.5 out of 10. I love this one, especially among the earlier Clampett shorts. You could see the amount of care that he took in making this one. It's not perfect, it's a little slow in parts, but the gags themselves are hilarious, even if the ending isn't quite as good as it could have been. But yeah, definitely a great early one. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.